Okay, good morning everyone. Let us begin. So we are going to continue Mirz Hashem today in the Laila. We're going to finish up the section on Laila tonight, or today I should say. So remember again, just a little bit of a recap. This is now I think it's our third class on Laila and Perek Shira. So we've been focusing in this particular section regarding the concept of Emunah and developing a definition, an approach, different insights into the concept of Emunah. Last week we spent, I think, the primary part of our class focusing on source number 7 from the Rebbe of Charkov, the distinction between Machon Torah as well as between Machon Torah and Kriyas Yamsuf. That whereas by Machon Torah, Vigbalta es Hahar, there were different levels that people approached Har Sinai. When it came to Kriyas Yamsuf, everyone had the same divine exposure. Everyone had that same interaction with the Shira. And again, we went through that entire piece, the distinction between intellectual Emunah, emotional Emunah. Let's continue a little bit along on this journey. So the Sfas Emes in number 8 has a different interpretation of this. And he says something quite beautiful. Because remember, again, our entire discussion here is rooted in a pasuk in Tehillim. Tehillim Tzadik Beis Gimel, chapter 92, verse 3, the Mizmor Sheli Yom HaShabbos kapitel. So the Lahagid Baboker Chasdecha Ve'emunoscha Baleilos. So you've spent significant times focusing on the idea that Emunah is tied to night. Emunoscha Baleilos. So the Sfas Emes says something quite beautiful. He says, number 8, Ve'emunoscha Baleilos, Ve'emunoscha Baleilos hu, ki shemislabish bateva, az hatikun al yedei Emunah. So let's analyze this for just a moment. See, everything in this pasuk comes down to how you understand the contrast between Boker and Laila. Right? Obviously, that's the contrast that David HaMelech is coming to create. Morning and nighttime. So we saw, again, many of the Mefarshim in the beginning understood that contrast to mean really the contrast between the pre-Messianic world and the Messianic world. The Sfas Emes does something a little bit different. And he says the contrast is actually between Teva and Lemala min HaTeva. So for example, says the Sfas Emes, let's work backwards. Lahagid baboker chasdecha. If boker means lemala min hateva, right, literally supernatural, so how would you understand the phrase lahagid baboker chasdecha? What is David HaMelech saying? What do you think? If boker is lemala min hateva, then lahagid baboker chasdecha means what? Beautiful. It's very easy to see the Ribono Shel Olam in the supernatural. Right? In other words, no one has any doubts about the existence of the Ribono Shel Olam in the midst of supernatural activity. The Ribono Shel Olam's power, his prowess, his identity, his presence is all exceptionally manifest in the midst of supernatural activity. So where does the challenge of Emunah come up? The Emunascha Baleilos. Ultimately, again, the Emunah, what true Emunah, and again, all the power of this piece is to give us a working definition of the concept of Emunah. The Emunascha Baleilos, that Emunah means the ability to see the Ribono Shel Olam in Teva, in the natural world. You know, we say in Modim each and every day, we say the Modim Anachnu Lach, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we thank the Ribono Shel Olam for Anisecha Shebechol Yom Imanu. Anisecha Shebechol Yom Imanu. For the miracles, thank you Hashem for the miracles of everyday life. And the Stipler, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, says something incredibly beautiful. What does that mean? What miracles are we referring to? So you understand this intuitively. We're thanking Hashem for the miracles of daily life, the miracles of Tava, that which we go ahead and we identify as nature, or we identify as ordinary, simply because it occurs day in and day out, is no less miraculous. So this is really an incredible idea. And remember, what we're developing over the course of this section of Laila in Perek Shira are different definitions and insights into the concept of Emunah. They're not mutually exclusive. My hope is that what you begin to see from this particular section is that Emunah is a multifaceted, multi-piece theological endeavor. There's no one definition to Emunah. Emunah has many, many different parts to it. And I think the incredible piece is we all connect the different aspects of Emunah at different times in life. Just like sometimes we connect more to intellectual emunah, sometimes we connect more to emotional emunah, sometimes we connect more to seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu again in the natural. But the idea, says the Sfas Emes, lahagi baboker chasdecha, easy to see the Ribono Shel Olam in the supernatural. Ve'emunascha ba'leilos. But the true emunah comes in Laila, at night. Night, says the Sfas Emes, teva, the natural order of the world. Do you see, are you able to see the Ribono Shel Olam in the nature of everyday life? Now, let me ask you this. In terms of, so really according to the Sfas Emes, we'll call it, there's like two levels of emunah. There's supernatural emunah, and there's natural emunah. Supernatural emunah that comes about as a result of supernatural activity, that's the Hagi Baboker Chasdecha, and natural emunah that comes about as a result of teva. Which one is more impactful and effective? Natural. Why? I mean, why?
It's easier to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
It's easier to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Good. What else? Why? Let's go. You have to train yourself. Excellent. Good. Let's build on that a little bit. Why else? I'm sorry? It's more of a challenge. And therefore what? Oh, you see, the greatest proof to this is Klal Yisrael. Right? Klal Yisrael, when we left Mitzrayim, what type of emunah did we have? Supernatural emunah, right? Lahagi, it was, our emunah was a lahagid baboker chasdecha emunah. Let me ask you, did it work? Did that emunah have staying power to it? Not really, because remember again, it's the same tragic story over and over. Remember again, there's miracle, and then there's setback. Miracle and setback. So remember again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes out and does 10 makas, takes us out, and by the Yam Suf, right by the Yam Suf, before he splits it, we fall apart. Splits the Yam Suf, we get through. Mara, we fall apart. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up, we miscalculate, build the ego, fall apart. You see, this is the incredible idea of supernatural emunah. Supernatural emunah works for how long? For how long? What would you think? Right? However long the supernatural event goes on for. But once the supernatural event is over, then at the end of the day, often the supernatural emunah dissipates as well. As opposed to natural emunah, as was stated so beautifully, when you work on it, right? When you work on it, when you toil on something, in general in life, anything you have to work on, by definition, has greater staying power. Anything that's given to you, okay, we all like getting gifts, we all like getting things, but those are not really the things you truly appreciate in life. The things you truly appreciate and cherish and take the most pride in are the things you work hard for in this world. So while it's beautiful to have supernatural emunah, who doesn't want to see miracles, at the end of the day, that type of emunah does not have staying power. That type of emunah, it's easy come, easy go, right? It's easy come because, of course, who doesn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu when you see the splitting of the sea? But the moment the sea closes back up and looks normal again and you encounter crisis, that emunah is no longer with you. It no longer stays with you. It no longer guides you. Masha'inking, if I train myself to see the Ribono Shel Olam and Teva, now you understand what it means to live a life like that? That means every single time I see something natural in the world, every single time I see a magnificent blue sky, like we are privileged to have today, and every single time I see that my fingers work and my eyes work and everything else works, if I train myself to see the Ribono Shel Olam in natural everyday life, then by definition, everything becomes a testament to the existence and the providence of the Ribono Shel Olam. And says the Sfas Emes, that's what David HaMelech is saying. Lahagid baboker chasdecha, supernatural emunah is great, but the real litmus test or the real spiritual effectiveness of the Jew is emunascha ba'leilos. Am I able to really cultivate a sense of emunah in the midst of teva, in the midst of the natural order of the world? That's the Sfas Emes. So again, another piece. So we have intellectual emunah, we have emotional emunah, we have supernatural emunah, we have what we'll call natural emunah. And again, the beautiful part about Yiddishkeit in general is, this is an interesting idea. Sham Shnaval Hirsch brings down in his Sefer Chorev. Anyone ever learned Chorev? I'm sure you've had this in classes past. Right? Rav Hirsch kind of wrote for lack of a better term, it's like a little bit of like an encyclopedia on Judaism. And in Chorev, what he does is he goes through different aspects of Yiddishkeit, kind of like a Sefer HaChinuch. But whereas the Sefer HaChinuch is organized according to mitzvahs, Rav Hirsch also does mitzvahs, but also goes according to concepts. He seeks out the concept of prayer. So if I were to ask you, is prayer supposed to be spontaneous or organized? Tefillah. Is tefillah spontaneous or organized? What would you say? It's supposed to be spontaneous, right? Remember again, tefillah in its original form was not codified. There was no such thing as a siddur. When would you daven? When would you daven? When you felt like it. And what words would you use? Whichever ones came to heart. Remember again, when was tefillah codified? Anshe Knesset Agdolai. The Rambam brings down at the beginning of Hilchos Tefillah that what happened, this was actually after the Churban Bayis Rishon. After the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. So it's fascinating. You know what the Rambam says? Listen to how incredible this is. You had Jews who were born in Bavel, right? Remember again, Godless Bavel didn't last all that long. It only lasted 70 years. But remember, how many Jews went up with Ezra for the Bayis Sheni? Right? A fraction. A tiny, tiny number of Jews. Jews remained in Bavel. So the Rambam says something amazing. He says the generation who was born in Bavel, something very interesting happened. They did not master Lashon HaKodesh. They didn't master what we'll call Hebrew, but Lashon HaKodesh, biblical Hebrew. They didn't master Lashon HaKodesh, but they also weren't totally proficient in Babylonian, or whatever the dialect was. So people had difficulty expressing themselves in an organized fashion. Now, do you know what happened? You ever see sometimes when let me say it differently. What happens when a person is frustrated in their inability to express themselves? What usually happens when a person is frustrated? I'm sorry? Right, so we say, well, what happens? Let's say a person has trouble expressing themselves. Right? So what do they usually do? So they may act, good. What else can they do very often? Scream, good. Right? But very often what will happen is people will just stop trying. Right? If I can't articulate a particular thought or a particular idea, forget it. Right? So the Rambam says something amazing. People have difficulty articulating themselves to the Ribono Shel Olam because I haven't mastered Lashon HaKodesh. I've not mastered, the foreign tongue of this new land, and so they simply stopped expressing themselves. The Rambam writes that therefore Anshe Knesset Hagdolah codified tefillah as we have it today. Codified tefillah. This way, everyone has the ability to express themselves. But if you think about it, the siddur is an anomaly to the tefillah experience. Because as we spoke about before, the whole essence of tefillah, right? Imagine for a moment, you go over to someone who you care very deeply about, and you want to go ahead and express your feelings to them. So you write down everything, you come to them in a piece of paper, and you say, "Dear friend, I love you very much. You are so special to me. You're so wonderful. I like you so much. You do that." Right? I guess you could convey the sentiment, but it doesn't really capture the essence of what you're trying to convey. And yet by tefillah, which is the most intense connection we have with the Ribono Shel Olam, I'm using someone else's words. It's not my words. Now, of course, are there places I could insert my words? Of course there are, but Lamaisa, it's not my words. So Rav Hirsch says something amazing. Remember, first bracha in Shemona Esrei, bracha of Avos. Why do we begin with Avos? Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Why begin that way? So schus Avos. On a basic level, I'm going to ask for things. And in case I do not possess the requisite merit for God to go ahead and grant my requests, I said, Ribono Shel Olam, even if I don't deserve it, I am the child of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, schus Avos. Good. Why else? This is incredibly important because this goes to the very core of the hashkafa of tefillah. Yes?
Because everything that we go through the outside.
Beautiful. Ma'isa avos simun labanim, certainly an incredible nechama. That sometimes we encounter challenges in life, and tefillah is very often a time where we, let me ask you, is your mind supposed to wander during davening? This is a tricky question. Right? Is your mind supposed to wander during davening? I'm not asking you if your mind does wander. I'm asking if your mind is supposed to wander during davening. So I want to tell you something very important. Your mind is supposed to wander, but it's supposed to wander to the right things. In other words, tefillah is an incredible opportunity to take a step back from myself and to think about my life. To think about my life. In fact, Rav Shamshon Nafal Hirsch says a little bit of dikduk, right? The Hebrew word to daven, lehit palel. What's the shorsh of lehit palel? Palal. Palal means? Palal means? Where does that shoresh occur in Chumash? I'm sorry? Naphtali. Excellent. Right? So palal, the shorish palal means to engage in the process of self-judgment. Palal, right? To engage in the process of, it's hitpa'el. So the hitpa'el is the hitpa'el form of the verb palal, to engage in the process of self-judgment. So what's incredible is, so tefillah is not just a petitional request. Not just Chakash Baruch Hu, I need go down the list. Of course, that's part of it. There's no question. Part of tefillah is where I ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for things. But the essence of tefillah is to engage in the process of self-judgment. How am I doing in life? Well, if all I'm focusing on is the meaning of the words, more often than not, I can't necessarily engage in the process of self-judgment. This is very important. My mind is supposed to wander. It's just not supposed to wander to the wrong things. Right? So in other words, to start thinking about things that have nothing to do with my process of self-evaluation, that's extraneous, that shouldn't be done. But to use tefillah as an opportunity to think about my life, to kind of let my mind wander and ask myself, how am I living? Where am I going? What am I doing? What are my goals? What are my dreams? What are my aspirations? What are my shortcomings? What are my shortfalls? What are my strengths? What are my abilities? These are the kind of things I'm absolutely supposed to be thinking about during tefillah. So let's come back for just a moment. So now, why do we start with avos? So Rav Hirsch says in Chorev something absolutely amazing. Rav Hirsch says, because we often group the avos together, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Were they the same people? Absolutely not. In fact, you really could not find people who were more opposite each other, right? If you were to contrast, if you were to take two biblical personalities, men for now, let's use men as example, and contrast them, who would they be? Avram and Yitzchak, right? Isn't it incredible? Father and son. Father and son. Yet again, Yitzchak Avinu's tachlis was all about the building of the self. Avram Avinu's tachlis was all about the building of the other. Right? Yitzchak, we don't see Yitzchak doing anything his father... I take that back. We find, what did Yitzchak do that his father did? He dug wells. Good. That's it. Everything else Avram Avinu does. Right? All nefesh, asher asu b'charan, all of that stuff. Yitzchak doesn't do it. Now, there's a reason for that. We'll see in just a moment. There's a reason for that. And Yaakov Avinu also is something he's a little bit of a synthesis between Avram and Yitzchak, but he's also dramatically different than his father and his grandfather. Rav Hirsch says something amazing. He says, you know why this is the introductory bracha to Shemona Esrei? To highlight the idea that although we all say the same words, we all relate to them differently. We may have the same Shemona Esrei, same brachas, okay, variation. You daven nusach Sfard, I daven nusach Ashkenaz, so maybe little changes like that. But at the end of the day, we all daven the same tefillah, yet our experience, our connection, our relationship is so fundamentally different from one another, and it's supposed to be that way. My relationship with Hashem is not supposed to be your relationship. And your relationship shouldn't be like your best friend's relationship. Everyone has a different relationship. Vaharaya, the proof to that? Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Rav Hirsch says something amazing. He said Chazal were scared. They were scared when they codified tefillah. Why were they scared? Think about this. Why were they scared? What does the codification of tefillah potentially eliminate?
Not personal.
Right? It's not impersonal. It eliminates the spontaneity. Where's my dialogical connection? Where's my conversation? Where's my voice in all of this? To which Chazal then put in Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Velokei Yaakov. That at the end of the day, there's a separate and unique relationship that each of us enjoys with the Ribono Shel Olam, just like the others. Same words, and we know this, same words, but different relationship to those words, different relationship to those brachos, a different relationship to the Ribono Shel Olam. Again, each and every day, each and every different tekufa stage in life. So why am I mentioning this to you? Because again, bringing this back to Amunah for just a moment, What my goal is to develop for you is a number of different definitions of emunah or approaches to emunah, and different things work for different people. And the beautiful part of Yiddishkeit is there are multiple points of entry. This is what the Ribbon Shalom. Why did he give us Taryag mitzvos? Why 613 mitzvos? 100 wouldn't have been enough. 25 wouldn't have been enough. 10 wouldn't have been enough. 7 wouldn't have been enough. 613 mitzvos represent points of entry. They represent points of entry into a relationship. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu realized we're wired in different ways. He knows that because He wired us. And therefore, different things relate to us or appeal to us or speak to us in different ways. And there's multiple points of entry to relationship with Hashem. And you see this all the time. For some people, the way they cultivate their relationship with Hashem is chesed. Now again, I want to be clear. Just because you find your point of entry in one way, of course, does not exempt you from everything else. We all have the same Taryag mitzvos. But the question is like, what do I feel is the anchor in my relationship? So some people, chesed. Chesed is their thing. Other people, Talmud Torah is their thing. Other people, different point. And that's the beautiful part. Who's right, who's wrong? It's all right. It's all right. So what does emunah mean to you? Maybe you're a natural emunah person. Maybe you're a supernatural emunah person. Maybe you're an intellectual emunah person. Maybe you're an emotional emunah person. And again, you could be one person one day and another person a different day. That's the incredible part. Multiple entries into a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which also shows you how much the Ribbono Shel Olam loves us, because He wants to give us all the opportunity. He wants to have a relationship with each of us, and He wants to give us each something in some way that we can relate to based on our personality, based on who we are, based on our life circumstances. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have easily said, there's one mitzvah, there's 5 mitzvahs, this is it. You want to relate to me, this is how you do it. Instead, 613 points of entry. Instead, multiple levels of emunah, so that however we feel we can connect, we have the opportunity to do so. Let's take a look at one more approach. If you take a look at number 10, this is actually, number 9. So the Radak points out something very interesting. He says, if you notice, there is a textual asymmetry in the pasuk. Why? The pasuk says, "Lahagid baboker chasdecha ve'emunascha balelos." What's the textual asymmetry? Right? So remember again, boker is singular, lelos is plural. So why is the plural of boker? Bakarim. Right? So why not go ahead and say lahagid babakarim chasdecha ve'emunascha balelos? Why lahagid baboker chasdecha ve'emunascha balelos? Why the plural lelos? So if you look at the Radak in number 9, again he just points out balelos lashon rabin. So obviously David HaMelech is placing a bit more emphasis on the lelos than he is on the boker. So whatever this means, David HaMelech is telling us what? There's more what? There's more lelos than boker in life. What a profound statement. Right now, of course, remember this is David. Why does it make sense that David HaMelech is saying that? Because this is reflective of his life, right? In David HaMelech's life experience, there is more Laila than Boker. Now, again, not to say that David HaMelech didn't have many beautiful things in his life. Of course he did. We've spoken about this before. But if you look at the continuum of David HaMelech's life, there is much more Laila than Boker. There's much more adversity than there is calm. There's much more darkness than there is light, which by the way, tells you something absolutely amazing. Tells you something incredible about the personality of David HaMelech. Because one would have thought that a person who suffered through so much Laila would become disenchanted, cynical, upset, jaded. Yet David HaMelech, again, is the king of optimism. I always say 2 people, to me, who are like the ambassadors of optimism, to me at least, David HaMelech and Rabbi Akiva. The 2 people who again, maintain the most overwhelming optimistic life view, despite having lives of overwhelming adversity. So the Radak points out over here, Leilos Rabim. So take a look at number 10. So this is from the Torah's HaMagid. So he writes over here as follows. The Magid of Mezrich, the Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. So he writes, Lahagid baboker chasdecha v'amunascha balelos. This is actually quite beautiful. Perish, Kisha Adam bebehirus, rotze lomar bedvekos, chazdecha. So the Magi does something very interesting. He says that what he calls Boker and Laila are references to an individual's personalistic state. Where am I holding in life? Boker refers to those moments or those times when I am incredibly connected to the Ribono Shel Olam. I'm connected. There's a connection. What he calls bebehiros. Behiros literally means what? Clarity. Clarity. Right? I'm enjoying incredible life clarity. I feel there's just clarity. The world makes sense. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sense, so to speak, to me. Right? There's a connection. There's a relationship. He says, in those moments, those are chesed moments. Lahagid ba'boker chazdecha. Emunas chabaleilos. He says, Perish, kisha adam lepamim nofel mimadrega, v'hu bechashecha be'inyan hadvekus. This is so profound. Says the Magid. And what does the leilos refer to? The nighttime refer to? The night, look at these words. Perish kisha adam lepamim nofel mimadrega. What does that mean, nofel mimadrega? Falls from his level. The Laila is when I go ahead and I experience a fall. I was holding on a certain level, and then something happened, and I lost that standing. I was nofel mimadrega. And as a result, hu bechashecha be'inyan hadvekos. That's Laila. That's Laila. Now, Laila vis-a-vis what? Vis-a-vis what? Laila in terms of my relationship with Hashem. See, what the Magid is saying is like this. As opposed to beforehand, we were kind of always looking at Boker and Laila, according to the first approach, as like Galos Mashiach, or Boker and Laila, good times, bad times, according to the Sasam, as Boker, Laila, supernatural, Teva. The Magid says Boker, Laila is a reference to what's happening inside of me. Nothing to do with the world. Representing what's happening inside of me. Lahagid baboker chazdecha refers to those times in life where I'm connected. I'm connected. I have a relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. I feel a sense of connection. The devekos is there. The devekos, like David HaMelech says, Acha sha'alti me'ez Hashem osa v'akesh shifti be'ez Hashem. Those moments, boker is when it's shifti be'ez Hashem. I feel a connection. And what's Laila? Laila are those times where I'm nofel mimadrega. At the end of the day, I've just lost, I don't have that connection. Why don't I have that connection? Why not? What would you say? When do we lose our connection? Baruch Hashem, no one knows. Incredible. Right? When do we lose our connection?
Depends.
It could be for a variety of reasons. A person could commit an avera, they could lose their connection. A person could be ba'atzvus, in a profound sense of sadness, they could lose their connection. A person could not be trying hard enough, they lose their connection. Something could be happening in life, any variety of reasons. But the Laila are those personalistic moments where for whatever the reason, I have lost my madrega, I've lost my connection, I've lost my dvekus. So this is incredible. So lahagid baboker chazdecha. So remember again, David HaMelech says, I don't have to tell you how to navigate the mornings of life, right? The mornings, when it's morning and everything's great and everything's wonderful and you have a dvekus, great. What do you do balayla? What do you do balayla? What do you do in the night times of life? And the Magid says, remember, what does David HaMelech say? What do you do at Laila? Emunascha, emuna. Emuna in what? Emuna in what? What do you think? I'm sorry? Hashem's emuna in us, or take it back one step, our emuna in ourselves. The Magid of Mezrich says something so truly beautiful. Lahagid baboker chazdecha refers to those moments of devekus. Things are good. My relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is solid. It's great. I feel connected. But then there's Laila. And we all experience those Lailos. And by the way, we all experience those Lailos. So how do you navigate through the personalistic Laila? The emunascha. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. He goes on, he says, Azal kol panim yeh adam. La adam zeh ha'emuna yedua. V'zocher ki boker b'maniskra pasuk v'losham b'hiros. So just believe. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can get yourself out of this rut. We all experience the spiritual valleys of life. There is no person who is in a constant state of dvekus. There is no person who is in a constant state of connection. There is no person who is in a constant state of inspiration. We all have our peaks and valleys, our ups and downs. So that's called Laila. That's called Laila. So what do you do when you're in the Laila, the personalistic Laila of a state of separation from Kadosh Baruch Hu? Believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, you'll pick yourself back up. Yes, Kadosh Baruch, I have to believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu believes in me. But remember, the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in me, that is meaningless if I don't believe in myself. Because if I don't believe in my own ability to pick myself back up, if I don't believe in my own ability to right this ship, if I don't believe in my own ability to just get up and just dust myself off and start again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could believe in me. Everyone could believe in me. If I don't believe in myself, it means nothing. But now let's loop back. Remember again, the Radak made an incredible observation, which is what? Boker is stated in the singular. Lailos is stated in the plural. Why? Based on the Magid, what would you say? Why? I'm sorry? Because everyone falls. Good. Good. Why else? What does it tell you about life? That there are more valleys than peaks. There are more Leilos than Bokers. Which is such a profound, when you hear it, it sounds like a little bit depressing, but it's actually incredibly affirming. That what David HaMelech is saying is, there are more times of where a person is not in a state of dvekus than when a person is in a state of dvekus. And the truth is, it makes perfect sense. Because what makes dvekus, whenever you experience a true moment of dvekus, a true moment of connection, why is it so special? I think about the last time you felt a real moment of connection. A real feeling that I am living side by side with the Ribono Shel Olam. Hopefully you've all had those moments. What's so special about when you experience those moments?
You don't have to have our
That they're rare. Right? They're rare. They really are true moments of that level of connection, of what we call devekus, of the shifty beveis Hashem. David HaMelech says, shifty beveis Hashem, kol yimei chayai. That's wonderful. That's an aspiration. Does anyone actually experience shifty beveis Hashem? Well, you can in different ways. But those moments of devekus, they're so special because they are so few and far between. So therefore, again, that's what Rak is saying. David HaMelech is saying, Leilos is in the plural, Boker is in the singular. Boker is in the singular. Why? Because again, those moments of Devekus are beautiful. They happen episodically. Leilos, those moments of kind of a separation, those happen more often. How do you get out of that? Emunah in yourself. So a brand new definition, something that what the Magid introduces us, this is different than anything we've seen before. Because up until now, we've been focusing on the idea that emunah means an emunah ba'Hashem. And we've been focusing on different types of emunah in Hashem. Now the Magid introduces us that emunah really means emunah in the self. When you find yourself in a valley of life, you have to believe in your ability to pick yourself back up. Question?
Yeah, well, I thought I'd go back. Not that that's so rare, and that's how the world does read because if somebody would be always connected to Hashem, it wouldn't always that boring, even if every single day or every single moment, because Hashem is infinite and we won't be more. So I feel that the fact that it's so rare that makes it beautiful. Even if it were every day, it would be just as beautiful, not even more beautiful.
Correct, but I'm saying absolutely. If a person was zocha to be on that level, that's a David HaMelech wouldn't have asked for shifty beveis Hashem kol yimei chayai if it wasn't going to be beautiful. I'm just talking about the nature of the human condition, and the nature of the human condition is we don't have it every day. It's just the way that it is. We don't have it every day. So I think because we don't have it every day, for us, that's what makes it so beautiful. If a person were to somehow get themselves to a level to have it every day, would it be incredible? Absolutely. Because like you said, the Machon is infinite. So there's no vistas in the relationship every day. But I don't think that's shaykh for 99.999% of humanity. So yes, you're 100% correct. I'm not suggesting at all that a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu could grow boring. Chas v'shalom. But I think I'll tell you just personally, what I find incredible about this is, I think sometimes we create an unrealistic expectation in our relationship with Hashem. And I think sometimes there's an expectation that's created that the goal is to always be inspired. The goal is to always be in a state of dveikus. And of course, that is an incredible goal. And you have to shoot for the stars. Is it realistic? Is it realistic? Well, it doesn't. David HaMelech is saying, not really. Not really. But again, I want to point out something very important over here. So what does that mean for our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? If I'm not always going to be in a state of inspiration, so what does it mean for those? What's the relationship like in those moments when I'm not inspired? How does the relationship survive in those moments when I'm not inspired? One word. Okay, you can use multiple words. Right? Commitment. This is true in any life relationship. In Meretz Hashem, you'll all be zocha to have beautiful, committed, and wonderful marriages. There are times when a couple is more in love, and there are times where a couple is not less in love, but it's just different. It's just different. Life is not one big Sheva brachas, right? Baruch Shalavai, should be zocha to that. But that's what relationships are. They wax and they wane. So what happens? What happens if I wake up one morning and, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I felt when we stood under the chuppah. I don't know what's happening over here. There's commitment. And commitment means sometimes you feel more, sometimes you feel less, but I'm committed to this. That's what the commitment is, the bedrock of every single life relationship. So this is, you want to know what's most special about our relationship with Baruch Hu? That even when I don't feel inspired, I'm showing up. Did we speak about this, about davening 3 times a day? Did I mention this to you? So I've been thinking a lot about this because, especially in the beginning of the pandemic when the shuls were shut down and we were davening at home. So I think many of us had the opportunity to think about our tefillah experience a little bit more. At least I should say many men had the opportunity to think more about davening than we usually did. And I had this epiphany that for many, many, many years I was davening, but rarely was my davening like a moving experience. Just to be honest, rarely was it like a regular Monday morning shachris. I can't say I was moved by the experience. I tried to daven with kavanah, and again, just to remain focused, not to allow my mind to wander to unnecessary things. But was it moving experience? Was it moving? I could say I know that I feel moved on the Yomim Tovim, when especially again the Chazan does certain nigunim on Yomim No'roim, I feel moved. But on a regular weekday, day in and day out, do I feel moved? Personally, the answer is very often no. So what does that mean? And then I began to think about this a little bit, and that is that perhaps, and again I think this is also very personal, sometimes tefillah, even when it's not moving, is incredibly important, because what does it represent? What does it represent? Commitment. I am showing up 3 times a day, and I'm never going to not show up. Sometimes I'll be more engaged, sometimes I'll be less engaged, sometimes more kavana, sometimes less kavana, sometimes no kavana. Eschatani maskir. But I am always showing up. The one thing I will commit to is I will not show up. I will not be absent. I will not be absent. I'm making the commitment to be engaged in the relationship. And like any relationship, sometimes it's more intense, sometimes it's less intense, sometimes it's more passionate, sometimes it's less passionate, sometimes it's more exciting, sometimes it's less exciting. But at the end of the day, I'm committed and I am engaged. That's the notion, that's the sort of relationship. So again, if we come back, let's just bring this full circle. So if we come back, so what the Maggid is saying is something absolutely incredible. There are many more leilos than there are bikara, than there are mornings. Because such is just the nature of the human condition. There are more moments when I'm not in a state of dveikus, laila, than I am in a state of dveikus. And that's okay. Because even in those moments when I'm not in a state of dveikus, I'm committed. So I want to be very clear. The absence of dveikus doesn't mean that I'm absent from the relationship. The absence of dveikus just means that maybe I'm not feeling it in the same way. But even in those moments when I don't feel it in the same way, I'm absolutely, unequivocally present in the relationship. But how do I get myself out of the rut? Because often we find ourselves in these spiritual ruts, in these spiritual valleys, the emunascha. Not simply emunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's a prerequisite for everything. But says the Maggid, the way to get yourself out of the ruts, out of the valleys in life, is the ability to have proper belief in yourself. that no matter how long I've been in the rut for, no matter how long I've been in the valley for, no matter how much I've messed up, and as a result I'm in this rut, I'm in this valley, I have the ability to remake myself, I have the ability to rebuild myself, and I have the ability to navigate my way out of the valley. Ve'emunascha, belief in oneself, is the way you navigate out of the Laila. A question?
You were saying that this is desiring the dream, but if a person is working on recognizing kind of doing a lyric, then shouldn't you be able to have a certain level of dvekus?
100%. And this is a very good point. The word dvekus itself is a very amorphous term. What does that mean to experience a sense of connection to the Ribbon Shalom? So, often we hear about dvekus, I think about spiritual elation, like some type of like uber-inspired moment. It looks different for different people. Absolutely. The idea of working my way out of the Laila, believing in myself that I get out of the Laila, I would agree with you 1,000% that in and of itself creates a sense of dvekus. Absolutely. All right, we'll stop over here for today. We're going to leave the Ma'ar Einayim Emirat Hashem. We'll tie it in to our next section in Perek Shira as well. Shkach everyone.